So this is for one of my athletes, Shelly, a new athlete of mine. She's a Masters 4 competitor in the 63 kilo class. And you can see this is what our strategy is for the age division nationals. And you can see this is the standard template that we use for TSG. And then we just input everything for the athletes. At the top of our templates, we have information about each athlete's lifts. So for example, for the squat, we have what is their personal record in a competition? What did they hit in their last competition? What is their latest assessment? And then what is their training one or max that we're using? So we can use kind of like those 4 data points to help build out our attempts. So we have that for squat, bench press, and deadlift. Below that are the warm-up weights for squat, bench press, and deadlift. And for each warm-up weight, we have the weight, we have the number of reps that's going to be done. And in this case, I also put in the about what time I think I should have my athlete take it so that we can be prepared for their opening attempt. I'm estimating kind of where they're going to be as far as the opening attempts as well. I'll show you that in a second. Below the warm-ups then are the attempts for squat, bench press, and deadlift. And for that, each second attempt is going to have 2 options, potentially, if you want to put in some flexibility in there. And then each third attempt is going to have up to 3 options. So our opener is kind of what we're going to turn in at weigh-ins before we kind of know how the day is going. We can always adjust that, but we want to turn something in at weigh-ins. And then after the opening attempt, we have the option to go potentially to 2 different second attempts based on how things feel. And then based on what our second attempt is and how it goes, we have potential for some third attempt options. So we're not kind of set in stone in one attempt. So this template gives us that ability to have some flexibility in there. Then on the right side of the template just has information about the athlete. Here I have that they are on platform 2, flight A. We have information about their best total and then their last competition, what they total. We have a section for nutrition if the athlete wants to put in like what they need to be eating and drinking after weigh-ins, what they need to be taking during warm-ups, all that kind of stuff, depending on whether they're cutting weight or not. Then we have a section for objectives and notes. So you can put in like, what is your primary objective? Which, for example, for Shelly, we want to win and hit the minimum qualifying total needed to make the team for the World Championships. Then from there, we can have secondary goals as far as like hitting personal records or hitting national records. So maybe let's say the national records are more important because you can only hit the national records at national, international competitions. And then the personal records are lower level because you can always just hit those at a local competition. Then below that notes section, we have a final little small section to mark down what are the records. So if we are going for the national record, we want to have a note of what the record is for each lift so we can easily see it on the sheet and make sure we're chipping it properly rather than trying to stumble and pull it up on our phone. And then at the very bottom, we can start tracking the competition as well. So as the competition is going, we can mark what weight did we hit on the squat, how many attempts do we make, and kind of keep track of everything as we're going. And also, then we can reference it back and see what was our final numbers, what was our final number of attempts made, everything like that. So that's kind of our attempt sheet. Now you, as an athlete, you can build out your own attempt sheet, or depending on what your coach gives you, may look slightly different. But you want to have kind of all that information that will hopefully fit on one piece of paper. So that way I can print this out and I can have one piece of paper referencing everything I need for this athlete going into the competition. Now, if I need to pull up additional stuff, maybe I need to look up the rule book, or maybe I want to pull up a competitor's past performance, I can maybe do that with a separate sheet or pull it up on my phone. But here's just one sheet, quick reference, so that I can then be ready for weigh-ins to tell the opening attempts to the referee. I can be ready for warm-ups with what warm-ups I need to load, how many reps I need to tell the athlete to do, what time they need to take those warm-ups as well. And then as we are doing the actual competition and we're on the platform doing the attempts, I can easily reference what our plan was as our options for second and third attempts, and then what were our previous numbers from training and previous competitions to see, hey, are we going for the personal record? Are we going for competing against someone and trying to go for first place? I have reference for the national records as well if we are chipping a record, everything like that. Okay, real quick, I can show you as well, this timer here is based on this little timing sheet we have on the right. Okay, so we have this little system where you can just put in how many flights there are, how many lifters are in each flight, which flight is your athlete in, what time does the competition start, and then how many warm-ups does the athlete have for each lift, and where do you think in the order that athlete will be. So here I'm just doing an estimate based on me looking at the nominated totals and estimating where my athlete will be for each lift. But then once the openers go in after weigh-ins, you could theoretically come into this file and put in what the actual first attempt order is. And then at the bottom here for each warm-up, you can put how much rest do you want after each warm-up. And then this will build out the timer. So this is saying, for example, for Shelly, if we start warming up our squat at 8:34 a.m., we will then be done warming up at 8:54 a.m., so about 20 minutes to warm up, and that will give her about 11 minutes before she has to go out on the platform and do her opening attempt. Now, if we want to have more time, then we can just adjust these prescribed rest times to be more time. And also, if we want to start earlier, we can say, hey, maybe we should start at 8:30 just in case, because it's better to start early and then be able to slow things down than to start late and rush through things. And maybe there'll be a lot of people warming up in the same rack, and maybe we won't be able to do the prescribed rest times that we want because someone else will still be warming up. So maybe we start 8:30 just to be safe. Okay. And then you can see the same thing for bench press and delve. It's just basing it on how the previous flight is going, because now the competition is going. So when the previous flight is squatting, we'll start warming up our bench press. And when the previous flight is benching, we'll start warming up our deadlift. And then it also includes the break. So this is, saying that, hey, it's 2 flights. So there's going to be a 10-minute break. So it's taking that into account as well. So this is what I consider. Obviously, I'm biased because this is our template and this is what I use for our athletes. But this is what I consider like a high-level meet day strategy template, and being highly prepared when it comes to this aspect, because this covers maybe not every single thing that you might need or that every athlete needs, because every athlete may have some small different things that they need or don't need, but this covers most athletes' needs of what they need. You can see even here at the very top, we have sections to put in the rack height information. So if they already know the rack height, for example, on a Alico rack, then they can put this in. So we're ready to go when it comes to check-ins and turning in the rack heights. But even if they don't, when we do the rack height, then we can mark it here. So I don't need to ask for every single warm-up. Hey, what's your rack height again? What's your rack height again? I can just reference it here. So everything here on this template is kind of what I need to, again, set the athlete up for success. That is my goal as a coach on meet day, is trying to put the athlete in the best position to be successful. And I'm taking care of all this stuff for them. So I am doing the timing for them. I'm doing the loading for them. I'm telling them how many reps to do. And that's why I'm preparing this mostly for myself as a coach. Okay. And you as an athlete should have a handler that is going to have this kind of information so they can take care of all that stuff. And then they just tell you as an athlete, okay, you need to go now. You need to do 3 reps. You can have additional information. Okay, put your belt on, put your knee sleeves on, put your bench shirt on, whatever like that. We're going to do commands. You can add those additional notes in there. And also things like nutrition. Okay, now take your caffeine. Okay, now make sure you're eating your banana, whatever. Everything is on here. So this is what I consider a high-level template, and being able to prepare the athlete for success when it comes to game day. So I think that is an important thing, because I'm seeing different things out there. Like I said, as people maybe only giving attempts and not giving warm-ups, or people giving maybe warm-ups and openers and not giving attempts, like as far as second and third attempts, different variations of that maybe are a good start, but I would say that they're not high level, because it still has different weaknesses that may set the athlete up for failure.